Cindy and I met up via headhunter for the same company opening a restaurant called Georgia Brown's. And Georgia Brown's was one of the first little white tablecloth, restaurants doing Southern food in D.C. And it was one of the first times. It was one of the first times that Southern food, or even the idea of Southern food as being restaurant food or fine food, as being presented outside of purely like New Orleans or something like that, is something that would be interesting that you should come for all the time. And that was Cindy was a girl who had loved, her family had moved all over, but who lived in Charleston, South Carolina for 10 years, loved Charleston, South Carolina. And when Hugo hit, wanted to leave as fast as possible and get a job somewhere else because all the restaurants are flooded and all that kind of business. So DC is where she ended up. And I had a chance to build and open that restaurant for them with her. And she and I decided we got along well enough that we would get married and move back to my old hometown, and which is here, and open a restaurant called Savannah. Savannah and Charleston, you kind of wonder why change. They're the two cities of the Low Country, right? That's the food that kind of like it inspired her a lot. She'd had a lot of classical background. I had a lot of classical background. A lot of my background was in very formal French service and that sort of thing. But we felt like one of the best ways to make people comfortable was we're not French people doing this. We're young Americans trying to get people to come and eat in the restaurant. Why not take that sort of approach, a European approach to food that hasn't been presented that way? So that's kind of what the idea was. The reason Savannah changed to Charleston is because of lawyers. Yeah, that lawyers always brings a joke. No, always brings a chuckle. Savannah was the name that when we were in the Admiral fell in for the restaurant that was there. When we went to leave, the guys that owned the hotel wanted to fight about the name, and we'd flipped the coin in the first place about which town to name the restaurant after. So we said, okay, we'll call it the other name. It's that simple. So Charleston we opened in '97, December of '97. And after a couple of years and a bunch more trips back and forth to France, especially to regional France, we had a chance to, in the neighborhood where I grew up, about 4 blocks away from the house I grew up in, I had a chance to build a restaurant in the old Morgan Millard space, Petit Louis, a little French bistro, and we tried to do pretty honest, like 100-year-old dishes in that restaurant. And that restaurant opened in 2000, in June of 2000. And then we opened, I opened a wine shop. I kind of gotten tired of writing down wine information for customers and sending them to retailers who then called me wondering what this was and how they could get it. And I realized I'd kind of been doing everyone's job for them. And I had all of these wine geeks on my staff. It's like, I should open a shop. So right down near Charleston where the Whole Foods opened up, I opened Bin 604. And sort of was shocked to find out like 3 months later we won this big award from Food and Wine Magazine as best new wine shop in the U.S. and blah, 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 blah. And went out to some ceremony in San Francisco and met a bunch of people that I'd like read about. It was really interesting. So we met Barry Bonds, which is really not the friendliest guy I've ever met. But his jaw is huge. And then after that, I'd been looking for, it's funny because the way Cindy and I work together is this. I have a particular idea, and I don't leave it alone. And it kind of grows and blossoms, and I have some movie going in my head. It goes for like a year or two. And then at the end of a year or two, I finally say, okay, I got to do this. And I found the space, and I try to present the whole thing as fait accompli. And then Cindy's always like, well, how are you going to do that and do the other stuff? So then it takes me like another 6 months to figure out, to grow the managers and grow the chef and figure out how to get everything done. I always leap ahead to like exactly what it's going to look like and what it's going to feel like and what the vibe in the room is and everything else.